Hello and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryaan Dunigan.
And we're going back in time with a total classic. One of those movies that's pretty much almost like you would say like the Avengers of its time period. You got the old 1963, The Great Escape, with, tons of actors, by John Sturges, that dude who did Magnificent Seven, who's kind of like the other, I guess you would say, Avengers type movie at that time period where you're just getting all these big actors together. I guess they're not big characters, but you'd say big actors.
Yeah, it was just a big, kind of, I guess maybe another example of it would be sort of like an Ocean's 11, kind of, where it's just like all these big actors in there at once, because probably before the idea of like crossing over franchise, it was like, how many big actors can we get in one movie? And that's definitely what this was right here.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because it seemed like after a while they kind of stopped doing it. Like, you don't see a whole lot of those movies like in the 80s where it's like they get a bunch of big actors. Because most time in the 80s it seemed like you got like one extremely big actor, maybe somebody is like kind of like a B actor, and then everybody else is kind of just, regular, fill in, play any role actors. Oddly enough.
It was probably a matter of pricing and all that kind of stuff. This is probably when I'm imagining this. I might be way off here, but imagine the rules of Hollywood are probably different here, and they could probably get by paying actors less back then, if I had to guess. Yeah,
because
a lot of them also even came from like working class jobs, like Charles Bronson.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's also sort of the thing too, is that you get all these people that, as time went on, the actors got paid more and more and more and more, and then it's just like, well, we paid all the money to you, so the rest of the movie doesn't get it.
Yeah, pretty much. And this is, truth be told, this is definitely like one of those movies your dad would show you right here. Maybe you wouldn't appreciate it as a kid, but when you get older, I don't know. This is a movie I always knew about. It's a movie I always knew about, but I didn't really, I think late high school, early college, right when I was really getting into Tarantino and all that, I was kind of looking up movies I knew he liked. I'm like, okay, well, this is a movie I see my dad watch before and all that. So sure enough, I ended up liking it. And it's one of those things where it's just like, there's something, it's not a movie you could put on any time by any means, but at the same, it's like 3 hours long. But at the same time, for what it is, it's really good at what it does and what it wants to be.
Yeah, well, the thing too is the movie's like 3 hours, so it has that like intimidation factor, but like it never feels like it's ever long. It goes by at a nice pace, and you're always focused on what's going on. And though it's like, yeah, it's one of those ones, like if you sort of like summed it up in your head, like what happened, it's like that doesn't feel like 3 hours whatsoever. You know what I mean? Like if you try to explain it to somebody, it does not sound like a 3 hour movie either. It sounds like it's an hour and a half movie.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, it's almost kind of like, I know that Tarantino does more pulling from movies than he does anything else, but it might seem like a weird comparison. It almost feels kind of like one of like Tarantino's and Tarantino's probably pulling from this, like Jackie Brown-esque movies, where it's just more of like a very slow, there's no real rush until we get to the very end kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that and the thing this movie always feels like, it just feels like a bunch of it just feels like going to Nazi summer camp.
Yeah, because for a while, because heads up, folks, we're going to spoilers on The Great Escape, but essentially it's about a bunch of POWs get put in a Nazi camp, and it says at the beginning, I actually should have looked into it, that it's based on a true story, but some characters are composites. Like, yeah, we changed some things around, but the way they got out and the way they got back is entirely the way they did it. So, who knows? But, at the same time, watching this movie, it's like a prison escape movie, but it's a slow burn, like a lot of those movies are, but it doesn't really... it feels different from any other prison escape movie I've seen, really.
Well, the thing that always just makes me laugh, because it's just like, it really, like, as far as the movie goes, it makes like this prison camp really not seem like that big of a deal. Like, it just feels like your parents sent you off the Nazi summer camp and you can't leave. So you got to participate in the games, you got to be in the choir and all this stuff. But of course, it's just filled with a bunch of ruffians who don't want to be there at any cost. Like, even the Nazis really like...
And that's the thing about... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the Nazis in this movie just don't seem that bad. Like, it's just, they seem like, we provided all these fun sports and activities. We even let you play baseball.
Yeah. There's even that part where It's mostly European. It's mostly British officers that are in there, and British soldiers, and like one Russian, you know. But it's actually there's a couple Russians. We only focus on one of them, but yeah. But anyway, it's one of those things where when they do catch them, it is like, oh, you get back in there. What are you doing? Get back in the cage. Come on.
To the cooler with you again. That will teach him.
You're on timeout. Oh, you rascally Steve McQueen, you. You know, they are very, very, like, just, not nonchalant about these guys breaking out all the time. It's not until they get to the end where it's like, oh, shit's getting serious. But I think that's kind of the thing of the movie. It kind of plays it off like it is kind of fun and somewhat lighthearted. And then you get to the end, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, these Nazis, we put them over the edge. That whole year of just, like... playing pranks on them and so on, putting whoopee cushions under their chairs, that just really pissed them off.
But it's like, what was it? There was, even the main warden, which I don't remember his name, but the colonel that's running that whole prison camp. I think his name was like
Ludwig. Or
yeah,
Luger.
He wasn't,
Luger, that's what it was?
I think it was,
I think I was getting my Mario Brothers confused with that one.
The thing about him, Ludwig, yeah. Like the fucking like Bowser's one of his like bastard children.
Now, would you want to see this movie? It's the Smash Brothers version of The Great Escape.
Oh, you could do it. I'm sure you could easily alter some characters around and make this like Master Hand or some shit that's running this shit. But no, the thing is that dude is the warden figure. He doesn't seem like he really cares about the Nazis that much, and they only get it across in a few things. It seems to him like this is more of a job, and he wants things to run smooth, and he doesn't want to kill guys if he doesn't have to. But at the same time, he's going to do his job as much as he has to. Because there's even that small scene where he's like, okay, this many escape attempts from your guys in the past, that's not going to happen here. He's like talking to like the British officer. And then all the other German officers are in there, they're like, Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler! And then the guys are, oh, right, yeah, Hitler, right, cool, right on. And it's, that right there kind of shows, all right, this dude's not into his job right here. This is a dude who's just kind of going through the motions.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was even the thing, too. It's like, sounds like in like the real story, too, is that there was a lot of these like German guards that actually helped out in the escape because they were kind of like, we're just taking this as a job. I don't know, like, got out of high school and it was something to do. Didn't realize what it turned into.
I can kind of see that, them just being kind of like, I got drafted. I really didn't want to do part of this. They even have a kind of one of them, the James Warner character. He even has like a small kind of relationship he builds with one of the guards. Unfortunately, it goes sour, but it's like, I like that Nazi kid. He's not so bad.
I love how James Garner just really like kind of like almost sort of treats that guy kind of like crap. Like he's like the nicest guy in the world to him, but then it's like, I got your fucking wallet. You're not gonna go like, spend your money and so on like that. And I'm not gonna give it back, but I'll invite you over next week.
Exactly. Well, I guess the whole thing we should say about this movie is you could kind of break down, if you wanted to, the whole plan and how they do it. And, well, then this stumps them, that stumps them. And that's all interesting. But really, after a while, it would just be us just kind of repeating more events. Because there's so many, because the thing is, there's not like one main character. It plays it off like Steve McQueen's the main character, but he's just the cool guy that gets to ride the motorcycle every so often. It's really, he's almost kind of like this, like, I think Steve McQueen is almost kind of like, if this is a sitcom, Steve McQueen's like the Kramer type character. He comes in, he gets a big cheer, goes off, does his own little B and C story, and then that C story comes back in a big way and plays a bigger part near the end.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like, that's even the thing, too, is like Steve McQueen kind of came with this movie. He's like, I'm only doing this movie if I get to ride a motorcycle. And he's like, Steve, there's not a motorcycle in the book. Only doing it if I get to ride my motorcycle. Okay, well, shit, the producers say we don't got a movie without Steve McQueen. Yeah, that's right, you don't got a movie without Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen means Steve Motorcycle McQueen. Now give me my baseball. I also like
baseball. Just don't fight him on this. Just give him the fucking ball.
I also like to, as the movie is going on, he's like, hey, the fuck, everybody else has a bigger part than I do. Well, Steve, you said you wanted to be a heroic guy who doesn't do anything heroic. Well, yeah, but I I want a bigger part still at the same time. Steve, do you even know what you really want? I want a motorcycle.
It's all Steve wants. You can just pay me in motorcycles. That's good enough.
Why does James Garner get so many fucking lines? Steve McQueen. I guess Steve McQueen turns out to be like 90s, like douchebag kind of kid. Like, hey, there's no soda in this fridge. Well, Steve, we didn't, plan on. What's some soda in here? Come on, John Sturgis. The Magnificent Seven had fucking soda.
Well, I'm actually. That would be actually the craft services. I'm literally busy directing a scene right now. Charles, can you get back in place? We have to do that again. Steve walked into the shot yelling about soda.
Steve, could you stop revving the motorcycle during other people's scenes? Steve's scene. Steve gets to ride motorcycle. Yeah, that doesn't happen till the end of the movie, Steve.
Like in the middle, like an office, he just rides by on his motorcycle doing a wheelie. Like, Steve, what? Get that out of here, Steve! Oh, God damn
it! Just like, how old is that kid? Is he like 18 or something? Like, no, that guy's like, he's almost like 40 by this point. Just give him the baseball, give him the baseball mitt and whatnot. He just starts throwing against the ball. Like, okay, good. That's gonna keep him distracted for another hour. That's how much time we have to finish the scene. Let's go. It's a good thing about Steve.
You can't fire him. He's Steve fucking McQueen. What?
Yeah, as the producers once again said, we don't have a movie about him.
So was he actually difficult while filming this?
Yeah, that's what they said. Like in like kind of the special features I noticed is that they said they like not like super difficult, but like sort of like he kind of wanted to have a bigger role, but he didn't want to. I like just the way they described it. It's like he wanted to be heroic, but he didn't want to do anything heroic. And then also apparently like Richard Attenborough said that he like wasn't super nice to him, something like that.
I don't know. You hear mixed stories about
poor John Hammond getting like bullied by fucking Steve McQueen.
I didn't realize that was John Hammond until I actually went and read the credits. Like, holy shit, Rich, that's John Hammond right there. And I liked his character a lot. But the thing about the movie, just going forward, just the how do I put it? The format of it. Essentially, you just have this long burn plan with this slow burn plan of these POWs trying to make their escape, trying to plan. What they're doing is they're slowly tunneling throughout the camp, and it's very much showing like all the little details. Like, what do we do with this dirt? Well, we have to hide this during these sacks and go out into the yard and let it kind of loose through our pants while we're doing like gardening or whatever. Or how are we gonna, just all the small little meticulous details you really wouldn't even think about. And then, every so often they hit a speed bump or they got to quickly put stuff away. But in the meantime, Steve McQueen is kind of doing his own escape plans with this guy, with the Scottish guy that he became friends with in solitary confinement. So after a while, it just becomes him like, hey, this guy is about to go crazy, so me and him are going to break out. You guys keep doing what you do. I'll help out every so often when I can. But it becomes Steve McQueen ends up becoming more focused on him and getting his friend out. Because he's like, oh, my friend's going crazy. We got to get him out of here as soon as possible.
Well, yeah, because it's almost like they become sort of like the distraction characters to like everything else that's going on. So everybody can, work on their big tunnels. And Steve McQueen and the other guy. I always put two where they're all of a sudden they're like, yeah, he's like, we're just gonna dig out like moles. like that's your plan? Yeah, like he's pretty good at digging. I'm gonna follow behind him. We're just gonna push the dirt behind us and just keep tunneling our way through. We'll pop out and we'll see if there's like 3 more weeks of winter.
And then he says like, well, you think it's gonna work? Like, no, but it's so stupid, it actually might. Like, oh well, I wish them luck. And then it just cuts to them getting like escorted into like their cells, like covered in mud and dirt.
like that's all I pictured. I was just they literally are down there just fucking digging. Like, we could do this.
They just end up like, if it was like a bad cartoon, they end up like right in the Nazis' office. Like, whoops.
Yeah. Like,
this isn't Albuquerque. Yeah. And then, but then the characters that really, it's kind of more of like a slow, almost. It's a thing about like kind of process, and then it's also a thing on characters because it's also a lot of it. A lot of the charm of it is just watching the interactions of different characters. Like Steve McQueen, even though he barely does anything for the first like 2/3 of the movie, he is like really fun to watch. He is really likable. Charles Bronson, he is like this big, like oafish, lovable Russian dude who kind of has the heart of gold, but he's seen some shit. He's the guy digging the tunnels. James Garner, he's kind of like, the real slick kind of. He kind of reminds me of John Hamm of today. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, he's like because he's also the mechanic guy because he builds like all those contraptions for him, like the oxygen thing that they have to pump air in the tunnel.
Wasn't that what's his name?
James Corbin. Never mind, I got you confused.
James Corbin.
Yeah, James Corbin. Yeah, no, James Garner's more like he's like almost like I always feel like he feels sort of like the main character of the movie. I know it's like Steve McQueen's like the guy who takes the spotlight, but like, James Garner seems kind of like the guy who's sort of in charge. I mean, not really in charge, but he's the slick guy, the good-looking one who makes friends with Donald Pleasance being the guy who goes blind at some point and be like, "It's okay, fatty, I'll get you out of here." What'd you call me? It's okay. I'm a good-looking guy. I can call you fatty. You'll still want to be my friend.
I just gotta tell you that I'm the good-looking guy because you can't see no more. I know that. Yeah.
Just gotta remind you. Here's a naked photo of me. Put it in your wallet. I know you can't see it, but you should have this.
Not only am I good at stealing shit, I'm also can fly a plane. I got this nice jawline. Even in this prison, my hair looks fucking amazing.
I'm friends with all the guards here. You know what I mean? They'll pretty much do anything for me. Yeah, it's just who I am. Steve McQueen's fucking pissed at me.
You get like Richard Attenborough's character, Big X, I forgot it, but watching this movie for I think this is maybe the third time I've seen this movie, like all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of forgot it the first time watching, but remember your boss, like Zero from whatchamacallit,
Metal Gear Solid?
Metal Gear Solid 3?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of forgot. I think Big X is meant to be Richard Attenborough, like an inspiration of his character from this movie.
Well, because they got a couple of references in that game, because there's also, like, you got Major Tom, and like it even explains at one point on a codec that he's, like, named after, like, one of the holes, and then he explains later on, he's like, "Oh, I chose the wrong one. I should have been, Major George or whatever." Mm-hmm. They all name him, like, Bob, Joe, Frank. I wish they just had one really random name, because they're all kind of, like, normal names.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just one tunnel's just got this really odd name going for it, like
Blunderby or whatever.
Yeah, like Xanadu.
Bagadiah.
Yeah,
just some weird ass old English name. No,
Testoogie. Just like, what the fuck? Like Bob, George, French, and Testoogie. Jeez, I don't know if we want to go in the Testoogie tunnel. I don't even know what that fucking means. You're just making shit up. You're like, I'm in prison. I got nothing to do.
I got a feeling that one has a lot of zigzags.
Yeah.
Just going off the name.
There's a loop-de-loop in there. Why the fuck did you design a loop-de-loop in the tunnel? That's so much resources being used. Oh, I don't know. It just sounded fun at the time.
Sound like fun.
We had a year to build these things, I didn't want to finish too soon.
So that whole thing is like, it's really, because you look at everybody, because everybody has their job, James Garner, his thing is to go out and kind of like just grab things they'll need, and then the Donald Pleasance, he's the forger, so he like kind of assembles things together. Then you got James Corbin, who's a little bit more.
It's like, I forged so much that I went blind.
Yeah,
he's got like some kind of disease that finally happens, but that's what it just seems like. I did too much forging.
I don't know if you actually see Donald Pleasant. They say what he does, but I'm not sure if you actually see it. Granted, there's like 20-something people in this movie doing their own thing. So.
I'm not even too sure if he sees it.
Yeah. Like, they just walked out the room. Like, I'm assuming he's doing it. We'll leave him alone. You just hear him bumping and tripping over shit. And then you have, like, James Corbin as the manufacturer, who's the guy who's assembling, doing more mechanical, like, work. And Charles Bronson, his nickname's Tunnel King. He was a Russian dude that was, I think he was Russian born, but then raised mostly in Europe, I believe.
I thought he was Polish, and he could just talk to the Russians. Because in the movie, he only speaks one line of Russian, so I'm assuming...
That's right, yeah. I thought he was, like, Russian born or something. But, yeah, right. He's probably Polish, you're right.
And my favorite part too is like, okay, he's like the tunnel king. He's gone through all the tunnels, but at the very end, he's all like, I can't fucking do it. Can't. It's like, what? Come on, dude. We're literally just there. He's like, no. He's like, I got claustrophobia. He's like, you dug for an entire year down here. You called us all pussies because we weren't down here, and now you can't go through it. It's like, yeah, I can't. Send me back up. Let's go back the entire other direction. But we're literally like 10 feet away from the hole. Go back the other direction.
Yeah, that part was a little, spoilers, ends up working out for him and his buddy. But it's one of those things where you realize that, just like, dude, you're in there this whole time, but you get it. They kind of get across the whole time he's been bottling up this fear he has, and he has actually claustrophobia with small spaces, but he's just that dedicated at the very end. That's where his fear finally caught up with him. But it is kind of funny because you watch Richard Attenborough through the movie as Big X, and you see him like calling the shots. Like, dude, what do you actually do? I'm telling you what to do. Just like, all right, So like, it's one of those things. Like, I like his character, but at the end of the day, you just want to pull him aside. Like, dude, what do you actually do?
Yeah, he's like, well, one day I'm gonna run a park with dinosaurs. Yeah, big. Yeah, that's right. Old Richard Attenborough's gonna run a park with dinosaurs after escaping a Nazi camp. Oh!
I'm surprised this movie didn't have the stereotypical, like, New Yorker who's just a naysayer on everything. Like, when I get back, I'm gonna start my own, like, law firm. Oh, yeah, like, you can run a law firm. Like, there's always that character in every one of those things. Like, God damn it, rookie, don't be fucking this up. There's always that guy, like, in every World War II movie, but not in this one.
There's a guy who's just like, well, why'd you, like, join the army? He's like, I heard I gotta make fun of French people in person. That's why I showed up here. There's no French people here in this camp. Fuck. And I get sent to the wrong camp. Whatever. Where's the next English guy? Get over here. It's fucking tea time. I'll give you a fucking noogie.
You call that shit biscuits? What the fuck is this?
Yeah, put that in the fucking tunnel.
No, but a big part of the movie is actually just watching their interactions with one another. Like, I like the reaction. Granted, it is Steve McQueen and his funny friend, the mole. That whole character, that whole thing he has with them is, it's like, yeah, I don't give a fuck about you guys as much. I mean, I'll help you out kinda, but I'm more along with this guy over here. He's just funny. Like, well, why? Well, he's a little crazy. He's been in solitary confinement for so long. I don't know. He's just funny to listen to. But it's all about me and him now. So you guys go do what you're gonna do. James Garner has that good relation he has with Donald Pleasance, and is the blind guy. What doesn't start off as blind, becomes more that way, and it becomes he's become like. The two of them, you feel bad for as this movie goes on.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's just like they just kind of get put through more and more kind of crap, and like it just does. They have that feeling like it's all gonna. Because I think it's like the James Garner kind of has that thing like it's all gonna work out, and then as it kind of goes on, it sort of slowly like falls apart for them.
Because this movie, it's been so long since I've seen it, so I was kind of thinking like, who makes it, who doesn't? I know a majority of the people don't get away, and I was thinking, is it 6 people to get away, or is it only 3? And then when the movie ends, like, oh yeah, that's right, spoilers, it is only 3. And when you see the people who do get away, and you see like the only one, like I want to say James Corbin didn't have a whole lot he had to do to get away. There's a few scenes where he had to hop here, hop there, and I like when he goes and he's hiding out like at a French cafe, and then they end up there's like a bunch of officers that sit down at one of the tables, and then one of the waiters comes, sir, there's a phone call for you. He says, for me? And he gets up, and they just get behind the counter. He just looks
like, who the fuck knows I'm here?
Yeah, then he gets up, they get behind the counter, then he sees them duck behind the counter and says, I should probably just do the same thing, and then they just get mow down these fucking Nazis.
Yeah, just a gang drive-by.
Yeah. Blaring like NWA or some shit.
Yeah. But the French version.
Yeah. No, and then from there he's like able to get aid from like, the resistance to Spain. Like, okay, so it all panned out for him. And you see everybody else go through some shit. You see a lot of crazy on foot chases, motorcycle chases, people dying, and then what does what is, I feel bad, I forget the other guy's name, but what's Charles Bronson and the other guy? What do they have? A nice leisurely boat ride.
Yeah, they just take this. Well, it's like all the guys that make it out really have no problem, because even like James Coburn, like what does he do? He like makes it feel like he rides a bike like halfway across Europe. It's like he steals his bicycle and nobody really hassles him, and he just rides all the way to France.
And then he's there. He's like, okay, I'm all right. Then he just takes a seat at like a cafe somewhere. He's like, fuck. And then he gets out of there all right. But he didn't really have to do anything.
No, he literally just,
So-
like, the French people were just nice enough to let him like behind the counter. Probably
Yeah.
fed him some pastries too back there. He's like, oh, that's pretty good.
A little bit of wine, yeah. Yeah, like here's some cheese too.
Yeah, the
So,
Charles. Yeah, is that all they do? They get in that rowboat and just like sail out to God knows where, and
I think they're all. I don't remember if they all take the train, but a lot of them get on the train. From the train, they all diverge at different points.
the train
I
is
don't
the worst
remember-
thing you can do. It seemed like it seemed like the train.
Yeah.
Train led to nothing good.
And I was watching this movie, and even though I know that most of them don't make it out alive or make it out of there, I kind of there's a lot of things I forgot about. So I was thinking, who makes it out, who doesn't? And for a minute, I was like, oh, does James Garner make it out with the blind dude? And I'm watching like, oh no, they don't. Fuck. It's just another thing that likes what's likable about most of these characters, or all the characters, is everyone in one way or the other is very competent. There's not the one, if there's usually any mess up, it's something that happens just by sheer dumb luck. There's a few situations where they kind of fuck themselves, like the one dude who is with Big X, Richard Attenborough. They're about to get on a bus and they just about made it, and they're speaking. The thing is, like there's a few moments where people like, you know, get like they kind of fuck themselves, like they're about to get on the bus and like, okay, I think we made it. It's a good luck. Says, thank you very much. Fuck! And they have to run off because they can just tell from their accents. And it's also one of those movies where a lot of times, I mean, it was just a staple back then, back in the 60s and 70s when there was a World War II movie. It was just like somebody coming in like, we are speaking German right now with no other German people, with only German people around us, And this one, they're actually speaking German and French to each other, and you have to piece together kind of what's going on just with the scene.
Yeah, because they don't have subtitles or anything too, which is kind of nice that they kind of do it that way. I mean, like the other way has never really bothered me. I know that bothers some people, like when they just, in a sense, they have
Bothers Tarantino.
Yeah, where I always feel like instead you use accents instead of having subtitles. Like that never really bothers me, but I understand kind of where someone kind of goes with that. But yeah, this one they just do
a lot of
no
times
subtitles.
If you have a movie a lot of times if you have a movie that's about like things all from the German perspective, or it's following the Germans most of the time, a lot of times we'll just get British actors to play German people. Did you notice that?
Yeah, that's like Valkyrie. Or you just have Tom Cruise just doing the Tom Cruise accent, and then it's like confusing. I'm like, that's always what threw me off in that movie. I'm like, wait a second, where Tom Cruise come from again?
Yeah. Well, it opens up like the fact that the movie's in English. I get what they're doing, and I don't mind the movie's not in German. But I guess at the beginning of the movie, you hear him speaking in German, then it phases into English.
Well, then it like phases into Tom Cruise accent. That was the part. It was like Tom Cruise just like, I'm not gonna do the fucking accent. Remember when I did an accent and fucking Far and Away? Everybody fucking hated it. Not doing that again.
Did they hate it in Far and Away?
For some reason, I've always heard people go like, "Oh, Tom Cruise he sounds like the fucking like Lucky Charms guy." And it's like, I don't know. It never bothered me. I like that movie a lot, but then again, I like Tom Cruise a lot, so fuck you.
Like that. Going off that though, I just think it's one of those things. Like the accent never really, old war movies when they do that, it didn't bother me. 'Cause, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of just looking. I could definitely see. Would I rather have the movie made or not made? That's kind of my opinion. And then on top of that, I could think of a bunch of people back then like, I don't want to read the fucking movie, so I could see that being a thing definitely in the 60s.
Well, shit, people are still like that today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so
most people don't
60s.
fuck, unless you like kung fu movies and anime, most people fucking hate like subtitles.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things. But throughout this, though, I thought that was just an interesting choice because you don't see that very often. You don't see it in a lot of movies from this period. It's usually just hanging out with Americans all day. And, sure enough, like whenever Germans talk to them, a lot of times it's in English. But whenever they're by themselves, it's usually, they're actually speaking German or something like that. So, or French or whatever dialect they're in for the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
It actually does a good job of like bouncing between humor, because the thing with this movie is it is a very slow burn, and it is almost kind of like not a lot happens, but it's almost just fun watching these guys interact with each other. And like something about a lot of 60s and 70s movies, humor back then, like dry humor, was kind of different from what way it is now. Like it's almost has like this innocent vibe to it, but at the same time has like something I just don't see in a lot of movies. Like for instance, there's the part when they're all making it's almost kind of like dad humor without it being too cheesy, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of that nice thing that like something that's sort of kind of forgotten in movies nowadays, because it's that sort of thing where like you can almost have sort of like that light humor that is almost technically more funny than something that's trying to be too raunchy. Because that, it doesn't matter, nowadays, even in movies that aren't even like comedies and so on and stuff, sometimes it's like people try to put too much like either like a too raunchy of a joke, or they try to have things like too over the top. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to make things too like rated R. I'm even gonna go rated X, like that far. Like they're just trying to push the boundaries for no reason. When sometimes it felt like almost in like like the 60s and so on, like when you pulled back a little bit, it almost kind of like it almost made it sort of better and funnier and sometimes even more violent without having to like try to be. It never had that trying feeling. I guess that's the key thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's like that whole scene where they, for the fuck of it, decide to make a bunch of moonshine from potatoes. And you don't really know what they're doing at first. First, you see this big contraption. They're messing around with it, and you see they're getting out some alcohol. Like, one of them tastes like, whoa. And there's like, that's all there is in the scene. And then Steve McQueen takes a hit off it. He's like, whoa. They pass it to James Garner. He's like, whoa. And then they pass it to like the third guy. He could barely get it out. And like, they pause there like, let's have some more, and it just goes on to the next scene, and you see that it's 4th of July, and they're celebrating, like, they're kind of just giving moonshine to everybody around there, and they're even kind of fucking with the British, because he's like, hey, we're here to celebrate the American Revolution, want to join? Like, yeah, why not,
Yeah, like they're just having a good old time with it and so on. With that good
and that's the saddest thing about that scene is, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, there's that delay. That's the saddest thing about that scene is that's probably what the happiest the movie is, and right when that happens, that's where it makes a dark turn.
Yeah, because they just kind of get that one point where the Nazis spills his coffee, and he goes, wait a second, that coffee just sank right through the floor. And then as they go to check it, they realize, they're like, oh, what the hell, there's a fucking tunnel under here. And stuff. And then, of course, it makes the poor Scottish guy, whatever, like, the second that they realize, like, one of our tunnels has been compromised. We were almost done. And so he's like, I can't fucking take it! And he just runs towards, like, the barbed wire fence. He's like, no! And then he gets just shot right there. And that's sort of almost the turning point in the movie, because that's where it goes from, like, Nazi summer camp to being like, oh, shit's getting real.
Mm-hmm. And that's also
he's just where... like, your parents said you had to stay here for 6 months. No leaving.
So, I forged the permission slip. I thought it'd be fun at first, but then no, it's one of those things where that whole scene, because from there they just realized, oh shit, they found one of the tunnels. What's going to stop them finding the other tunnels? Because luckily they get across that they have one of the tunnels was found, but there's 2 other tunnels, and those right there all have like they don't do the same thing at each tunnel. So. That I thought was clever. That all right, we're not going to make the same mistake in case they find one of these tunnels over here. But then they say, all right, got to pick up the pace and leave in the next the next week or so.
Yeah, so they speed up one of the other tunnels and so on and get it kind of going. But yeah, that is kind of the part too, right? Like boom, right there, they realize, oh shit, these Nazis. Before it was just all fun and games, you know what I mean? They'd slap you on the wrist, put you in the cooler. Now they're serious and pissed.
Like, all right, how many detentions can we give these motherfuckers, all right?
It's clearly not working on that Steve McQueen fella.
Well, even that's where he kind of turns, because for a while he was doing his own thing, but then he would kind of help him out lightly here and there, and he'd tell him what he knew. Because the thing is, he would get actually out, he would every so often get on the other side of the fence, but then get caught again. So, they wouldn't show it, but every so often that would happen with him. So then... he ended up getting once that happens, he's like, okay, I'm with you guys now. I'm going from lightly helping you out every once in a while for like, exchange for favors to just full on being on your team.
And also, when he would get out too, he would bring back information and knowledge of kind of what was going on, because they even made they all do it through like dialogue. So it's like it's never like it really shows some of those ones. But then there's also one time when he comes back, they're like, "How did he get caught?" You're like, "Oh, he didn't get caught. He wanted to get brought back in."
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so he's bringing
like
kind of outside information back to kind of help them with their like tunnel escape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right, because there's a minute where they ask him to do that. He's like, I'm not going to do that. And he's like, all right, I'll do it. And he does it kind of begrudgingly, though. And then there's also a lot of the smaller humor. Like, I was thinking about people who have the jobs. There's he only has like a few moments in the movie, but it's like the people who are assembling this whole thing, there are those who get the better jobs. Like Charles Bronson probably has the worst jobs. James Garner, not the worst job, but a lot riding on you. Steve McQueen, you get to kind of go do whatever you want to do, then come back like, oh yeah, here's some wood I found, But somebody who has the easiest job, I forgot the character's name and the actor, but he's the guy that's, because they get across like, all right, we have to make noise to cover up the sound of them digging. So one of our guys is going to be out there every other day doing a choir for the fun of it. Those motherfuckers had the easiest job. Like, well, I'm digging. Well, I'm risking life and limb to get, like, these parts. We just gotta fucking sing.
Yeah, and sing loud and proud.
Like, that whole part right there. I mean, granted, the guy doing that, he goes pretty badly, but at the same time, because he's one of the guys who actually gets caught in the escape, and yeah, at the end, when they finally, because about 20 of them escape, I think they bring back like 17 of them or something like that, and then 3 of them escape, actually really escape out of there. So, I'm sorry, what was it?
Well, they're like 70 of them go out of the hole.
70 get out of there. 50 are shot and killed by the Gestapo, and then 17 I think are brought back, and then 3 escape.
I've seen that part too when like all those guys get shot. It's like they're like, okay, you're going back to the prison camp, but it's a long way, so get on out and stretch your legs and so on. They have that moment where the guy's like, he's like, you know what? This was the most fun I've ever had in my entire life. Thank you for all this. And then all of a sudden, it's like they turn around and it's just like they're loading up the machine guns. It's like, oh, well, I guess it will be the most fun I ever have in my life. And then they all just get blasted right there. Probably just that thing was just like, you know what? Fuck these guys. Like, they've been hassling us for 2 fucking years. They didn't think we were serious.
Well, that wasn't even the main part. That was that wasn't their colonel or that wasn't even like the leader of the prison I can't even talk right now, of the prison camp. That was just the Gestapo. Like, you know what? We're gonna save us some gas money and a strongly worded letter to get rid of that guy over at that POW camp.
Yeah, well, I think that's just sort of it. They just could like kind of got to the point where like, yep, you know what? These guys obviously aren't doing a good job at their prison camp taking care of this. They got the most prison breakouts of the year going on.
Hey, can we actually put a quick hold on this?
Sure.
Yeah, sorry. I'm gonna stop my recorder here.
I just say just let it roll, or else it makes it really hard to put it back together. So like the whole like sort of like reason with the Great Escape, because I remember the first time watching this as a kid, and it's like it's sort of like you didn't put all the pieces together right off the first time, and I was like, well, that didn't seem like so much of a great escape. Like only 3 of them made it. Like it seemed like a mediocre escape at that, you know. But then it's like you kind of
bare minimum escape.
Yeah, you learn later on. It's like the whole point of like that Great Escape wasn't necessarily to get people out of there. It was to create a super distraction, so that they were doing like the invasion of Normandy, and they wanted to get as many Nazi soldiers away from that. So by doing all these escape attempts and just being like hassling the guards and so on, and getting them to chase and follow them all over the place, like that was pretty much to prevent or to get those soldiers away. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes more sense now.
Yeah, that in itself, there's the part where Richard Attenborough is almost kind of like talking as if like, man, did we fuck up? Did we fuck up? And then everyone in the bus with them is like, no, dude, we didn't fuck up. Think of how far we got, and this definitely pulled resources away from the attacks and war plans going on right now. If anything, maybe didn't go as planned, but we still did our job, and we should feel good about that. He says, yeah, you know what? This has been the best day of my...
Yeah. Just feel like, oh, they're loading up the machine gun.
Because that's the sad thing. As soon as he's like, you know what? Because he's so stressed out about everything the whole time. It's like, God damn it. You know, I just... right as soon as he's cool with it all, that's when you realize, oh, he's getting gunned down.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other big thing, I guess you'd say, even though it doesn't happen in real life, but what would really distract those Nazi guards, though, is Steve McQueen riding through on the Nazi motorcycle bike being like, yo, John Sturgis, we need to have that scene. In fact, it's going to be like a half an hour's worth of scenes.
Or it's just one of those things where, here's the thing, Steve went out, decided to fuck with some locals, just happened to be wearing Nazi uniforms around here. So he that's what he's doing right now by himself. We just got to go find him and document it, okay?
It's kind of funny. In real life, Steve McQueen actually did get arrested there in Germany for speeding around too fast.
I could definitely see that.
You know, well, there's a scene in there that makes you laugh so hard. It's like, okay, he's riding around the Nazi uniform on the bike and so on, and he comes up to this area where there's just all these guards and so on. He's like gonna pass on through, and the one guy's like, "Wait a second, come over here," and he comes on over like, "Oh fuck, okay." Shows up. It's almost like that. Show me your papers part, and instead Steve McQueen's like, "America coming through," just like fucking big boots him over, just like peels out right there.
Just takes off.
Just, I don't know what it is. Just when he just like big boots that guy down and just flies out of there, laughing so hard.
That part was pretty good. There's this movie has a lot of intentionally funny things, but there's a few things like that where it's just like, Steve McQueen's like, sorry, I got a date with freedom.
Well, that's Steve McQueen's character just feels like he just represents the American freedom like spirit, like right there. Just everything about his character, just like he's against authority. You can't tell him what to do. He loves baseball and motorcycles. You know, I mean, he gets into trouble, but it's harmless trouble.
Yeah, and the whole thing is like, well, what'd you do? Well, I went to school for engineering and pay my way through tuition. I did some tricks on a motorcycle. You know, a few bucks here and there. Just like, just like, and every so often, I would just, bench press for like breakfast. I would just do push-ups for breakfast. That's all I do. It's like, God damn it, you're all man. Like, I am all man. Thank you.
He almost even has like sort of like a Bart Simpson sort of feel to him.
Yeah, I want to say The Simpsons actually did a great escape parody with the whole Bart having to throw a ball against the wall or something like that.
No, it's actually Maggie, and she gets put like in one of those like child daycares, and then they like they take all the pacifiers away, and then she's got to break it out.
I forgot about that. That's right. And then there's
because it's also it has the great like the one thing I'll say is like that Great Escape like theme song, like the ones like bum 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 bum. Like that doesn't if that doesn't get you in the mood for like freedom, I don't know what does. for a fun
rousing like a fun rousing romp of freedom, yeah. Or just like the this movie does have a sense of, up until like the last like 40 minutes of it, this movie has a very playful, fun, like, oh, what's the worst thing that could happen attitude about everything. Because even when they first get there, there's something we forgot to talk about. As soon as they get there, you get a vibe what all these guys are about. And they're already fucking with the guards 20 minutes in. Yeah, they're just all trying to sneak in through, like, hedge trims and all that. And the Nazi's like, okay, get out of there. Like, you caught us. Get back in the line. Like, all right. Sorry, Hans.
I know. Like, they really overstepped their boundaries just right off the bat.
Even like, he tries to blend in, like Charles Bronson tries to blend in with the Russians, because the Russians don't get bunks. They get to go cut down trees out in the woods, Well,
have you ever seen that? Get up there. Have you ever seen that Bruce Willis movie that's pretty much like The Great Escape with Bruce Willis?
No.
Can't remember what the heck it's called. I know I have it somewhere, but like that like kind of just shows like more like the darker, grimmier side of like those kind of camps. And when it shows like the Russians, it's like pretty much they have all the shitty jobs of like they just pretty much just work in factories and cut trees and yeah, get the low end of the stick on everything. So I don't know what Charles Bronson was thinking trying to sneak over there.
I think because he saw they're going out in the woods, and he thought, as long as they get in the woods, they got a chance. And then someone noticed them and called them right off the bat. Like, they try to show the Nazis at the beginning of this movie were I don't know. I mean, given what happens in the rest of the movie, I don't think it really shows. I think they're trying to show, oh, these Nazis aren't fucking around. They're very competent. But like, no, not really. Not really. They're oblivious to all this shit going on. He's able, like, James Garner is able to, blackmail like some Nazi kid into, getting him a camera.
Yeah, exactly. Well, James Garner's just using his James Garner good looks to get by on everything.
James Garner could have played Superman back in the day.
Yeah, I was like that, like, man, he totally could. He's just built like it. He got the chin, got the haircut.
He honestly looks like he could be like, I don't know, I'm looking at him and I don't really know a bunch of stuff that he's been in. I mean, he was basically in more like, movies 90s and up, like, okay, he was like the old dad or the guy given wise oh, I thought there was something else for a second. Like, what? He was in that? Like, oh, it's a different movie. But anyway, he's one of those guys who plays like a dad figure in a lot of movies, which a lot of people his age become that in time. But he could have played like, he reminds me of kind of a what's his name? I said John Hamm earlier, but he also kind of reminds me of Thanos. I'm trying to blank on his name. Josh Brolin.
Oh, Josh Brolin.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could see that. Even like Charles Bronson, I thought his mustache kind of looks a little Josh Brolin-y.
Oh, back when we were doing our episode on like if there's a Batman movie made in 1971, and you said Charles Bronson, watching this, like, yeah, I know that was 71, and this is like 63, but still, that's perfect casting right there.
Yeah, exactly. You just look at it, it's like, that Charles Bronson. Come on.
Yeah.
Even in this one, it's
well,
like he's just
even James Garner, I'm gonna say.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I feel like he could play any superhero really back in that time.
Yeah, he pretty much just had like could have been Green Lantern.
Has the chin, has that charisma. Yeah,
exactly.
He's probably my favorite character of this movie, James Garner.
Well, as I said, he's kind of like the main character of the movie. That's how I sort of feel. If Steve McQueen being like the Kramer of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which you probably wouldn't tell that if you had to explain if you had to go back in time and explain that metaphor to McQueen, you'd be like, what? I'm nobody's Kramer. I'm only Jerry, But at the same time, I feel like, well, you're just kind of because he's not really the main character of the movie. He just comes in, does some cool shit, then bounces out, and he definitely plays a big hand. He actually helps the thing get further along than it is. But I guess you'd say he has a little bit more development than anybody else because he's the guy who goes from being just a real sideliner to the guy who's doing like a big thing at the very end.
But yeah, the movie even just ends with him coming back, just being like, here's your baseball, going back to the cooler.
Yeah. It's always kind of like a rock star's return. Like, he made it. They brought him back. Well, they brought a lot of us back. But they brought McQueen back. Here's your baseball cap, bro. Like, America.
Yeah, America. Well, because that was the thing, too. I forgot, like, for some reason, I thought Steve McQueen got shot there at the very end when he does that motorcycle jump and everything like that and then crashes into the barbed wire. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like he makes it past one barbed wire and can't get past that second one. And I was like, for some reason, I thought I did, but it's like, oh, no, they bring him back.
Yeah.
Because probably at that time period, if you would have shot Steve McQueen right there and just fucking ended the movie, fucking cut the credits afterwards, that would have been like, oh shit, remember that dark ending in Great Escape? Just fucking like some German shepherds just go over and just like gnaw on his head.
It's like just dragged off all bloodied and
no fucking music. Cut the just credits and screaming.
Cut. There's a pause before it goes out. Da 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 da. Background. Have that song just ruined for you.
But for some reason, I don't know what it was. I thought he was one of the guys who didn't make it, but it's like, oh no, he makes it.
I remember he had his rock star ending where he didn't win, but he came back like, it's the fucking Cooler King, I knew that was gonna. I remember that was gonna happen. I couldn't remember if James Garner and Donald Pleasance can make it. I was pretty sure Richard Attenborough wasn't going to make it because I think I would have remembered that part. But I knew Charles Bronson got away, but I forgot how easily him and the other guy got away. It was just such an easy boat ride. Like, hey, look, there's a boat. Let's go down here and hope for the best. Oh, look, another bigger boat going away from this country. Score.
But probably that's what's like, hey, we put in this is the thing. You put the hardest work in, you get the easiest way out.
Yeah, it was Willie. It was that's John Lighton was the guy. It was because the two guys working on the tunnel essentially.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think it's like,
hey,
I
man,
think
we
more
did the
people
hardest-
worked on the tunnel. It's just like in the movie, it just makes it feel like those two guys did all the heavy lifting.
They're the ones kind of leading it and kind of pointing it in a certain direction. Yeah, and had an idea of what they're doing. So it's like, you know what? They did the most work. It was the hardest probably for them. Let them get on the boat. Let them have the easy escape.
Yeah, exactly. It was that, and then James Corbin just rides a bicycle out of fucking Eastern Europe.
Has like a quick, I think, run in with one of the Nazis or two of the Nazis, and then takes a seat at a cafe, and then from there it's, dude, come hang out with us behind this bar. You got a call. We did? Oh shit! I want to go to Spain. Yeah.
You want me in a spaghetti western? Cool. Come on. We don't know how to use a camera yet, but wait a second. Wait till fucking World War II's over. This whole southern area is gonna turn into Little Mexico.
Pretend to like pull a gun on. Practice your quick draw shit. Think of cool one-liners to say.
Yeah, exactly. But what's another interesting thing about The Great Escape that I always say? Remember, like in 2003 when they made that video game for PS2 and Xbox?
You know what? I was thinking, did they make a Great Escape video game? And some reason, I don't know. That must have been that era when they were doing a lot of like retro movie video games.
Because they did like the Warriors, and they did The Godfather, and they did like the Scarface sequel, and there were some other ones. But I remember just like when the Great Escape one came out, it was a game that I really wanted to like play, and just somehow I think it's just because that was the time period too where it's like you got either this game or that game. You couldn't just get them all. Like when you get to like being an adult, you're like fucking like Pokemon Master. You're like, if I fucking want it, I get it. You know what I mean? Fucking nothing stands in my way. But back then it was like, it's this or that, and you're like, well, like. I would love to have the Great Escape one, but I bought whatever this was, and now I have to hold off for a month or whatever, and then time goes by. But I just also remember, like, I'm like, that game seemed like such an odd choice of a game to make. I'm like, that game feels like you're literally making a video game for like my grandpa or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, who's the real target audience on it? Because you know what I mean? Like people that are just like really into movies, like me and you. I'm like, well, that clearly is not enough to sell something. I feel.
Yeah, well, I guess that's also a thing. They probably went on it at the angle of, you know what, we can do it with, like, you know what, I kind of forgot about that game, now I'm looking it up, like, oh shit, I kind of remember seeing things for this game now, and it's just so weird because it's like, yeah, you're right, that is something like, alright, Warriors even seems like a weird pool. Godfather is big enough, and you can contribute that to Grand Theft Auto, so it pulls it off, but I think there's just something about, like, I really don't know what it is. Maybe Godfather was really successful. I don't know if that game, how much money that.
Well, I don't think Godfather
made.
technically came out yet. I want to say Godfather was a little bit later because
there was Scarface. There was Godfather.
I think that game was a little bit. I think all those games are actually later than this one because I want to say Godfather and Scarface were like tail end PS2 era because they also appeared on the Wii.
Yeah. So when did this game come out? That has me wondering. This game came out
2003.
2003. Yeah. Square Enix Europe. Okay. All right. Well, it's one of those things where I am curious about that. It probably would have been like a dumbed down Metal Gear Solid with a little bit of like car chasing here and there, or bike chasing, if I had to guess, and probably minimal on the kills. Because how much can you really do? You're in the same thing. It looks like, just going from screenshots of this, you're only playing as Steve McQueen. So maybe it's kind of like what, maybe it's like the shit that Steve McQueen did once he got beyond the gate, you know?
Well, it has, like, you apparently play as four of the characters. You play as Steve McQueen, you play as James Garner, James Corbin, and then you also play as McDonald, who is Gordon Jackson. But that's the guy, Steve McQueen's buddy, in, like, the cooler, I think. Isn't that McDonald?
Oh, okay.
That
his name was Willie. His name was Willie. Maybe his last name was McDonald. But
maybe that's what, because you don't play as Charles Bronson for some weird reason. But
because you're probably digging the whole time. I imagine, Charles Bronson like pops up like Knuckles and like, I got a way out of here. He's like goes down there. Like he seems like the checkpoint character. Like you're running along and then a hole pops up in the ground. Charles Bronson pops up. Like, do you want to save?
This sounds so weird that when you say Knuckles, that almost makes you feel like, oh my god, because Steve McQueen is so Sonic the Hedgehog.
He's wearing blue. He kind of wants to go do his own thing.
But I just picture Sonic just being like stuck in like Dr. Robotnik's prison or whatever, and down there just being like, just always breaking out, be like, what? I can come back whenever I feel like it.
You know what? There's about 20 years of Sonic Archie history. It wouldn't surprise me the least bit if somewhere in there they did a Great Escape issue. I'm just saying, wouldn't surprise me, you know?
Yeah, well, if anything, I'd love to see that almost now. Now, I feel almost like you could have Richard Attenborough's character be like Tails.
Richard Attenborough be Tails. Well, I don't know. I see. Well, no, I think his. Hopefully he wouldn't die. Well, Grand Tails dies a lot in the game. I feel like Tails would be Willie, the Tunnel King. He says, "I want to go with you, Steve McQueen." Like, you know, I imagine it's going to be something kind of like that.
Oh, yeah,
Richard Attenborough.
I guess I feel like that seems like old Tails. I feel like nowadays, like kind of like once Tails has been kind of more developed, I see him being more like the guy who's trying to make plans, because that's what Tails sort of seems like now. He seems like the guy who's got all the information. Before he was
strategist.
Before he was just the one who followed Sonic around, but now it seems like, yo, Sonic, I keep you in fucking line.
Hello?
Yeah, what's going on?
Thing blank out again.
Yeah, Tails is just sort of there to keep you in line and so on.
Thing blanked out again, but yeah, I remember Tails nowadays, he's more the strategist and inventor of the team.
Yeah, you know, he's just there to keep Sonic in line and all that good stuff.
Knuckles is definitely Charles Bronson still, because he's digging. You probably have, I don't know, after the main three, who really gives a shit? I like Mighty, I like Espio. By the time you start saying, you know what, David McCallum, he's kind of like Vector. You know, by that point, I feel like, all right, you're reaching.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. That's always how Sonic sort of is. Once you get past sort of the main three characters, you kind of realize the rest of it. It's like, not that the other characters aren't still somewhat interesting. You're kind of like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's about it.
Who's Nigel Stock? Nigel Stock, he could be Gamma. Yeah, E102 Gamma, I think. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. But
really reaching.
I think that Great Escape game though kind of has like sort of like it is doing like kind of like almost like prison escape type stuff. Like I don't think it's trying to falter too much on being like, you know, like it's like I don't think it's like as much like a stealth, like you're going around like assassinating guards and so on. Like I think they are kind of focusing more on it being like sort of like what the movie kind of does, like maybe a little bit less violent type game where there's, I don't know, more tasks and so on. It sounds still interesting. I almost like now that I kind of forgot about it and then remembered about it, I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't mind trying to see like pick up a copy, because it's probably one of those ones. It's either gonna be a game that you can probably pick up for like $10, or it's gonna be a game that's gonna be like $60. I'm not too sure. One or the other.
It's weird because I feel like what kind of got those games running along, because, you know, I think there's something about like late. I really don't know what it was that kicked it off. Probably for me, it was seeing Kill Bill and then being curious about Tarantino. Oh shit, the fucking computer. Sorry, computer went out for a minute. I'm thinking about what kind of started all that retro film stuff back then, back in the early 2000s. Part of me thinks, I could think for myself, it was seeing Kill Bill, really liking it, and being curious of who Quentin Tarantino was, and then learning about Tarantino's inspirations and things similar to him, and then just want to be educated in movies. So I'm thinking about back on, like, was it really, I'm kind of wondering, like, they think, well, you know, Tarantino's big. Kids love this. Kids are starting to become movie nerds and know this kind of shit. Let's make a Great Escape game. Let's make a Godfather game. Scarface, that lends itself to Grand Theft Auto. And then, of all the things, Reservoir Dogs, the one, like, sell it for $10.
Yeah, well, and I think also, too, is like, there was that thing, too. I think DVD special features is sort of what also made that such, like, a big, like, oh, man, you know, some of these older movies can actually kind of come back because people are way more interested in, like, film making and film history and so on. But yeah, as far as games go, like, because the thing is, like, I'll say this, the Scarface and the Godfather one, they make 100% sense because that's literally what Grand Theft Auto, that was like when they wanted to make a Grand Theft Auto movie. I remember just being like, are you fucking stupid? Like, do you know that that game just literally takes from like all the greatest like mafia type movies and just kind of crams it together like a greatest hits? You know what I mean? Like, what you know? And yeah. So I mean, those ones made sense. And I'll say this: Godfather and Scarface sort of have like that Star Wars kind of thing where they sort of like they have like almost like a little bit longer lasting. Where I'm gonna say this, like the Great Escape is one of those ones, like unless somebody like showed that to you, like that movie, it's almost been so long that the average person probably has no idea what it is. You know what I mean?
Watching this movie now, and I was thinking if you were to make one now, and I'm not trying to sound all hipstery, I think a good Great Escape game would be like some kind of like over the top, like, bird's eye view strategy game where you got these guys trying to like get supplies and digging under and trying to get out of there from not like a. I mean, I'm sure you could probably make it like a cell phone game, but not. But I think you could really like expand on it and make something more
like Age of Empires.
Something kind of like that, where it's a top-down view. You got to be stealth, and you got to distract the guards, or you only have so many guys that are good at this, or so many guys good at that. So you got to keep that in mind, and you could have to get this many guys out by the end of the day.
Well, it seems like it would be a.
Like, I wouldn't have to be strictly. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it sounds like it would make for a great kind of like strategy, kind of like almost like those old fashioned kind of. They still make them the kind of this day and age, but it seems like the gloried golden age of it, when they used to do all those like kind of like tycoon games, like Roller Coaster Tycoon and Park Tycoon and Business
Something
Tycoon, like one of those ones. So it's like instead you're running a Prison Break Tycoon.
Yeah, or it's like something to the effect of like you could have the guys be out there singing every day, but that could also like annoy the guards. So if it's every day, they're gonna be on you, So you got to be more sparing of when you're doing or the distractions you're doing to keep them away from the dig site.
Yeah, just you could really like work it in. It's like all kinds of different kind of cool strategy things and so on. I don't know. I still kind of want to go out and find a copy of this game and check it out, though, just because it sounded like it was still a pretty good game all in all. They definitely say it's kind of it's made for somebody who likes the movie, and it's like when that's kind of the weird thing about it. It's just like I just kind of feel like when you're putting together the Great Escape one, that sounds like such a project where like you have a bunch of guys who are probably in their 40s in like 2000 who are like, man, it'd be so cool. Think about putting the Great Escape game together, but not really realizing that I just feel like there was not like a big enough audience for that game to try to make, you know what I mean?
I mean, not just Great Escape, but I think they'd be better off kind of like a Grand Theft Auto thing where no, make something that pulls a lot from escape movies or prison films and try to work a game around that rather than just this one thing. Because beyond that, it's just mostly a dialogue-based movie and people bullshitting, and every so often there's a Nazi running around the corner. And even that's not that big of a deal because there's been a handful of moments earlier in the movie where the Nazis get onto them on one thing or the other. So they're just like, oh, okay, well, we're kind of back where we started. That's not a big deal. We've had this happen before. Where when it actually does finally happen, it's like they're so close to being done, that's where it's suddenly a big deal if they're found out. Because earlier on in the movie, they get caught a bunch of times. And you're like, well, what's the big deal? They just go in the chamber for a couple of days.
Yeah, exactly, and so on like that. I don't know. It's an interesting one. But that's also that time period. Well, actually, it was another really good game was made about right at the same time. But then once again, this movie's not nearly as old. They had the Thing one that was like a sequel to the Thing.
Oh, yeah.
Or a prequel to the Thing, actually, I think. No, wait, it was a sequel. Because the other movie's, I think, is a prequel. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe I can't remember. But it's like, there's like movie, game, movie, or something like that, whatever. But like that one was like amazing game, like such a well like put together one. So it's like they were doing these great movie ones, but I think that was also the thing is after a while they got to the point where they're like, you know what? Here's the thing: people that like old movies, there's only so many of them, and they don't sell games well enough. And maybe they also had this idea. They're like, well, here's the thing, maybe we'll get kids into old movies by making a Great Escape one. Like I think there's always that old person mentality, to be like, well, if you get into like what kids like, you could sell them something older,
Yeah, well, I don't even think that you would need to do this because, I mean, after Red Dead Redemption, I feel like that's already a combination of a bunch of Westerns that people like. I mean, if they came out with like a well-made, like, Man with No Name game, I'd be up for that. I definitely want to check that out. But at the same time, being realistic, I don't think you need to do that because by this point, a lot of people don't even know what the Man with No Name is, so...
Yeah, it's just almost too old. Because I also remember there was another game that they were putting together. I don't know if you remember this one, but remember when they were doing that Dirty Harry one? It was like at the tail end of PS2 era, maybe going on PS3. And there was a handful.
It was going to be like a Grand Theft Auto in San Francisco. Yeah.
Yeah, and but it looked fucking so sick. And then they just canceled that project all of a sudden for some goofy, weird reason. And it was just like,
I heard it was a combination. They actually had like Clint Eastwood come in and do a few voices and then never picked up from there. I want to say I remember watching a video on why that game never came out, but it's usually one of those things. They get very eager, they get going, and then this studio absolves this studio, and this studio doesn't feel like renewing the rights or whatever, and they just cancel it, something like that.
And I think probably also it had to do with like they had all these other movie games kind of come out, and I think that none of them ever did like really well. Like, because here's the thing: a lot of those movie games were actually really good. But I just don't think they just didn't sell super big, and I think nobody's like, you know what, we can't make blockbusters off these, so let's just cancel that. Because it seems like after that Dirty Harry one was kind of done with, you stop seeing these kind of games.
And also made me, I mean, granted, it made me want to buy the Warriors because, like, get the Warriors video game, which had a big impact on 70s cinema. This movie that was very different and edgy and ahead of its time. And it's a very big fucking deal if you like movies, is the way they kind of advertised it. I'm like, okay, I'll get the Warriors. And then I'm watching it, I'm like, I feel like I should be loving this. I really feel like I should be loving this. And then you talk to people who grew up with the movie, or at least grew up in the 80s. They say, dude, I fucking love the Warriors. And there's just something about it where I'm just like, I don't hate it, but I'm not really impressed with it. I feel like, okay, you know?
You know, I'd like to give that movie another shot once. I've given that movie like a shot like every seems like 6 or 8 years. Like thinking that I'm going to one point watch it and be like, oh, I finally get it. You know what I mean? But like, I might, by this point, I might actually like it even more. Because before it was just always like, one's like, it's like cool concept, but like, it's like one of the movies where it's like nothing really happens in it. You know? It's just
well, it's even inspired by the same story as 300. It's about like a small group of soldiers and behind enemy lines. Both those movies end differently, but it's kind of the main. That's what it pulls from. So. And the thing about it is that movie came out, now we're talking about the Warriors, but I'll make it quick. The thing about that movie came out, like, there's that weird post-apocalyptic New York era for movies where New York was so bad and there's areas that were just abandoned. They weren't sure what they were going to... Oh, God damn it. This thing.
Must be just
your
end. It must be just your end, because I nothing changes on my end. I hear everything fine.
Okay. Anyway, but it was that period where they didn't know what was going to happen with a lot of these areas in New York before they got all gentrified and redone and Giuliani's cleanup and all that stuff. So just like, so is parts of New York just become like this weird wasteland, which is a lot of like those, you know, 80s and 90s street brawler games come from. That's where a lot of this post-apocalyptic New York thing comes from. So that's kind of what Warriors was. And I think it was the first movie to do a good job of it, or a bit at least present it in a particular way. So, but at the same time, it's one of those things like maybe I have to watch that movie again, but this movie still holds up, and it's one of those movies that doesn't I don't feel like I can watch it all the time, but it definitely holds up in its own way.
And well, I think this is the one of those movies too. I like it every single time I've watched it. This is probably about the third time I've watched it too, and I don't think I watched it like in 10 years. And it feels like it just gets better each time I watch it too. Like I really enjoy it. Like it's like one of those movies where it's like it's pretty darn perfect. Like the whole way through, you're never bored, though it's 3 hours long. It's always interesting. The characters are great. When there is action, it is amazing. You know, of course, you get, you know, the fantastic motorcycle scenes where Steve McQueen's pretty much doing 90% of the stunts, and then he's just got his buddy who does that one jump and a couple crashes. But even Steve McQueen's still doing crashes and so on. Just that time period, Steve does what Steve wants to do. But yeah, no, it's one of those ones where it's just like it's a really solid flick.
I could see it being hard for people who aren't into like slow burn movies with lots of dialogue, but I think the dialogue's really good, and there's just something about the characterization it has down.
Yeah, and I mean that's to be said about almost like any older movie in general. It's either you like old movies or you don't like old movies, I guess. Like you're never gonna win somebody over who doesn't generally care for older movies. But but no, yeah, I think as far as the World War II one and kind of Prison Break and all that stuff, like it's just a movie. It's fun, funny, tense, exciting, and just kind of interesting. It's still based off of, you know, a true story, even if they do kind of like, you know, they kind of put it together a little bit more, I guess, fluidly and compress characters and so on. But that's nothing wrong with that. That's movie making. But yeah, makes you really want to go and get the game next. I kid you not. There's actually also even a Great Escape 2, but it's a made-for-TV movie in 1988. So who knows what that is supposed to be.
They're still in the prison. Now they got to go one more time.
Yeah, the Great Escape 2. But that reminds me of that time period. Like in the 80s, they seem to make a lot, like, because there was like a Casablanca like sequel in the 80s as well, I think. And say, what the fuck? Like, yeah, I don't know. We just thought we could sell it again before it got too late.
Yeah, every so often they'd just be like, well, it's now or never, I guess.
But I guess it's better than making a remake. I'll give them more credit for making a sequel than making a remake sometimes. Though I will say The Great Escape is one of those movies, but this is the perfect example of a movie that could be remade because I feel like it's old enough. Because I always think it's odd when you want to remake like movies from like the 80s and 90s. It's like, dude, that's not that long ago. But like this is one of those ones where it's like it's old enough that it's like the movie will still always stay classic, but you could kind of remake it, just like The Magnificent Seven. That's what I mean, the same director, anyways. And that was one of those ones where it's like the remake works totally fine, doesn't affect the original. It's so far, off from each other. I mean, when the movies are like, 60 years old, it's like, yeah, that's fine because the average general audience probably doesn't even know about it or has never seen it, and it does kind of bring attention to the old one at least once again. Steve
McQueen would probably be played by Brad Pitt. I could see James Garner being played by maybe John Hamm. I mean, I'm just going for people who are very close to these characters, people who are close to like what this was,
Charles Bronson. I know it's like the guy's not Russian or anything like that, but I almost feel like he would be like the what's his name from the Transporter, fucking
Jason Statham.
Jason Statham feels like he fills in sort of like he's like I know he's not really exactly the same, but he feels like he kind of fills in the Charles Bronson action character type role of nowadays.
Yeah, we're just naming off big actors that are like close to who these people look like or close to who they were, like counterparts. I think like, okay, well, he's kind of like the 70s. Like I always think of Brad Pitt is kind of like the modern Steve McQueen. So same thing, like James Garner, just the way he looks. I was just thinking of John Hamm most of this movie. So
it sounds weird. Richard Attenborough, Simon Pegg.
You know what? That's different. That's a different choice. And I imagine even though we're just saying these different, same thing, different actors, you could still probably mix it up a little bit. You could probably still change up like who's doing what and how they're doing it and still, follow this pretty closely.
Yeah, but it's one of those ones. As I said, it's just like The Magnificent Seven. Like, you could see a remake, but I feel like there would be no flack in like kind of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Where it always seems weird when someone picks like a movie that's like from like 1989. It's like, let's do a remake of that, and you're like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Like that movie's still not that. I mean, like I know there's like there's probably somebody out there who's like, I don't watch movies before 2010. It's like, well, go, fuck yourself. I don't care.
Yeah.
I hate whenever I hear people say that. It's just like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
Yeah.
like what was done to you as a child? That's all I don't know. Something's messed up. But yeah. Go check out.
They were like beaten as a child with a poster of a movie that came out in '99.
Yeah, exactly. It just ruined it. They were beaten with a Matrix poster, and from that point on, just couldn't handle anything older.
Anything that came out before 1999, I can't get into now.
Yeah, but I just hear that too much. There's just some people who's like, yeah, I don't fucking watch old movies, and it's like they're like serious too. Like, don't you dare fucking throw a Steve McQueen movie next to me.
Yeah, that's just. I remember one time hearing somebody. It was in a film class back in college, and there's this one snooty little prick who, after we watch a movie, you have the thing where you're like, all right, talk to someone in the class. What do you think about that movie? And I was sitting next to this random person, and I was like, oh yeah. So we watched like what was it? Metropolis, like not the anime movie, like the live action like silent film Metropolis. And I really liked it, And we're sitting there, and I was like, yeah, I get there was just this there's what they could do with movies and what they wanted to do with movies. You could see what they wanted to do, but even with what they pulled off, that was still saying something. It's like, I thought it was kind of dumb. Well, why? You just didn't like the message, didn't agree with it? Like, no, that was fine. I get that they were limited by what they can do back then, but just the overreacting and then just all the thing, it was just cheesy. It was stupid to me.
Yeah,
it's just like you're trying to narrow it down, like, yeah, but it's one of those things you don't have to love the movie or watch the movie again, but you got to keep in mind, like, how many things I had to work with. Like, I don't really care. It was a dumb movie. It's like, okay.
That's pretty much the exact like definition of somebody who's not open-minded.
Yeah.
Like right there, just be like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I like what I want. Like fucking movies before 2005 fucking suck. Like, dude, what are you doing in a film history class? I just want to come here so I can like fucking bitch about them.
So I could do something for my YouTube channel. Movies that everyone likes that suck.
Yeah, so I'm making this one. It's called, like, Why Star Wars is the stupidest fucking movie ever, and why The Godfather has terrible acting in it. Like, oh, it's this guy.
Like, 15 most overrated directors ever. Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, like one of these fucks. Yeah.
Steven Spielberg again.
What do you like? You know, that's where I get to that point. Like, what?
Yeah.
But anyway, this movie, you could do a remake of this, and it could still probably pull off and be relevant.
But yeah, no, this movie to me, I just think is just super classic. Always can go back to it. You know, just a great movie all the way through. So make sure you check out The Great Escape. Put a little link in there in the description and so on. But yeah, fun stuff to be had. Other than that, go to oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, more comics like Pizza Boys, animations, and all that good stuff. Until then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryaan Dunigan.
And we'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.
Thanks again for listening to the Old Man Orange podcast. Sure, check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, cartoons, music, animation, and a whole lot more. We also have the Old Man Orange blog going with all kinds of fun stuff. If you easily want to support the show, use one of our Amazon links either on the website or in the description of the podcast below. Rate, review, and subscribe to the show either on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Newgrounds, or anywhere else that you seem to get this podcast from. Grab the sitcom-styled comic book Pizza Boys on either Comic Central, Comixology, or Amazon. Want more podcasts? Check out the Indie Comics Club over at Comic Central. I also got a workout website called Thor's Hidden Gym, filled with fitness tips and tricks, videos, and a whole lot more fun stuff in the calisthenics world. Talk to us on Twitter at Spencer S. Holmes and Dunigan Ryaan. Like our Facebook pages of Old Man Orange Productions and Pizza Boys Comic. Thanks again, we're out of here.